guys, welcome back to this week's vlog. I just wanted to do a basically riding raw vlog of my first ride after our first lesson. We had our lesson the ride before this and we learned quite a bit just in one semi-private lesson. So I wanted to kind of go through what I did in my ride afterwards to practice some of the skills that we learned and some of the techniques that we were told to work on until our next lesson. So here I am, this hasn't changed. We just warm up on a loose rein, walking around. I'm setting up my Equilab right now and getting that all going. And then I just kind of let Happy wander and make sure that we're kind of moving and not just like crawling, because he does have a tendency when we're walking to think that we can crawl at a snail's pace. So yeah, I'm just making sure I keep him moving and keep him going and keep him a little bit focused, but also kind of just letting him look around and get familiar with the arena. This was the arena that we rode in for our lesson, and that we'll continue to ride in for our lesson because this is the jump arena. Again, I just do a loose rein warm-up walk. We do this for anywhere from like 5 to 10 minutes depending on the day, depending on how tired I am, depending on how stiff or Happy is or I am. And then we get into our ride. So that's just us warming up as usual. So here I start on a pretty much loose rein as usual. The first, not critique, but correction that we were given was that we should be using a shorter rein and have Happy's pull up higher, which is kind of difficult for us considering that I've ridden for almost 2 years now with him in a constant stretch and almost on the buckle, if not just pretty long reins with almost no contact, as everybody knows if you've been watching this channel. So I did decide, and I'm going to continue to keep warming him up at the trot on a pretty loose rein, asking him to stretch and bend through his body, and that's what we did here. We were working on circles in each corner, which was something that we did in our lesson. So we were doing trot circles in each corner and getting them to bend and move through their body a little bit looser, and then change directions and do the same thing this way. I think my trot warm-up on the loose rein was about 5 to 10 minutes that we did this, not very long, just enough that I felt like we were listening and moving off of my leg and just soft and supple through his neck and his poll, which I feel like we really got there here. So that was basically my warm-up. And then in the lesson, we shortened our reins, as you see here, and I tried to keep his poll elevated but not yanking on his face. And this is very hard for both of us just because I have a hard time getting his poll up without him leaning on me, and then in turn he also likes to lean on me. So this has been kind of hard over the last week to work on because he is starting to get a little bit leany, but I'm also leaning, so something that we're going to have to work out and figure out in our lessons and ask the coach for a little bit of help with, just because that is our tendency. But I am actually pretty happy with how he lifted and doesn't seem to be quite as heavy on the forehand. It's still coming through pretty well behind, even with his head up. And you can see his ears to the side. I feel like that's him like thinking like, what the heck are you asking me? And like, how do I balance myself? But I was actually really happy after I watched this video back while I was editing with how he looked, and he felt really good actually when I was riding him, but I wasn't really sure if he was going to look all strung out or if he was going to look choppy or what, but he felt really good and he looked just as good as he felt, I guess. But yeah, so we continued working on this for quite a bit, just trying to keep my reins from slipping through my hands, which happens quite a lot, especially since I'm more used to the feel of him being longer and lower. It's so hard for me to like pull his head up and keep my reins short. I have this tendency of wanting to just let them slip and let him go back to that. So that's something that I'm working on, and then also just keeping him propelled forward so that he doesn't get blocked up and choppy with his way of going. But that is definitely the first thing that we were told to work on and to keep working on, and that's kind of how we rode the lesson, was with a shorter rein. So here I go for my first walk to canter, which was basically what we did in the lesson, and he was definitely balanced to take off on the wrong lead. So while I felt like that wasn't a bad transition, I was irritated that I got the wrong lead. But then we fix ourselves and get the wrong lead again, but then we finally swap to the correct lead. And here again, we have to keep our reins short, make sure that he is moving forward and not getting stuck in a little canter, which was really a difficult situation for us when we were jumping in the lesson because I had no where to go. And it was actually, I never realized this, but part of why I was never getting the correct distances and I couldn't pilot him to correct distances. I always knew I wasn't going to get a half halt out of him, but not being able to push him either was really a struggle in the lesson. So we definitely worked a lot on that in the lesson, and we will work on that once I start doing a little bit of jumping in this ride. And the instructor also agreed that if I felt like posting or doing a half seat or 2-point was easier for Happy to keep his pace, to continue doing that. So I was happy that she wasn't like, oh my gosh, stop doing that posting. So we continued to post both ways in the lesson, and honestly in the lesson he was perfect. Like, I am so impressed with Happy. He was like very focused. He didn't spook at anything. He only had one instance where the 3 people in the lesson, including myself, so 2 other people, were cantering. He got a little excited that everybody was cantering and was kind of starting to a little bit crow hop and feel fresh. But that was like the only thing that he really did, and we were able to correct it, and he realized that that was not a great way for him to move, because every time he would go to dive down forward and crow hop, I would just pull his head back up, and he, after the 3rd time, was like, this isn't fun anymore. So he was really, really good in the lesson, and I was just so proud of him because he's come so far. He's like used to not focus very well in lessons and not focus very well at our rides, and now I feel like he's finally starting to understand and relax in his job. So we did a simple change and changed to the right. The right in this arena has been so difficult for us because this arena footing is new. It's hard underneath, but they have like the stringy felt filler on top. And I don't know exactly what it is about the right lead, but he's not quite as balanced to the right, and he seems to lose his rhythm this way. So it feels really awful. Like, you can see him breaking into the pace. But I've decided, like I said in one of my previous vlogs, that I'm going to let him break when he feels like he needs to break and let him figure out what to do to lift himself to get back into the canter, because I feel like I can't keep helping him, and he needs to learn that when he starts to feel himself get off rhythm, that he needs to lift through his body and get back into the canter. So there's going to be a lot of instances in this ride, in this vlog, that you're going to see him just kind of falling apart a little bit to the right, but then lifting himself back up and getting back into the canter. And it's just something that we're going to have to work on and keep working on until he gets the strength and coordination to keep holding that right lead. But yeah, that was one of our biggest, like, fallouts right there, and I hate the way it feels. It's super embarrassing as somebody who is riding a gaited horse with a bunch of warm bloods, but you know, it is what it is, and I have to just relax and learn that, you know what, he has a 5th gait that other horses can't do, and he makes him more special than other horses. So once we finished our canter, that was the entirety of our canter warm-up, I basically just dropped the reins, let him be on the buckle, and let him stretch his back, because I felt like that had to be a little tough on him to do so much collection when we're not really doing very much. So yeah, as you see, I just completely let him go and let him stretch and relax. And we did this for just a little bit, and then we took a breath in a walk break, which I think I edited out of this video. And then we started our jumping. So that is what is next. Alright, so the focus of jumping was to keep him balanced and on his hind end, and we did a lot of trotting into a grid that was basically like a 1-stride cross rail grid. But today there was just the 1 cross rail, so I just started warming up with the trot and trying to keep my reins short, and then also just kind of trying to stay back and waiting for him. And we did this both ways, trot in, canter out, and it went pretty well. There was no complaints, there was nothing that I was really upset about. I think he listened pretty well, and I was able to get the distance that I wanted to each one, and I really hate trot pole or trot jumps, but I think that they do have their point and purpose for him. So then once we warmed up at the little crossrail there, I wanted to start including this crossrail off the diagonal. And I wanted to basically get him into the corner and set him up so that I can push him to the distance that I see from the corner, which was basically the issue that we were having in the lesson. Was that I would get to a corner and I'd come out of it, lose all of my impulsion, and then have nothing at the jump, and we were basically like flying through fences or getting really weird short distances. So my homework was basically to learn to extend and shorten his canter. He slipped there and got really angry about it. And that was basically what I wanted to work on. I don't feel like I really got to work on it as much, just because by this point in time, he was getting really tired. As you can see, he starts pacing and losing his balance a lot more. And he was trying really hard to keep doing what I asked of him, but we were both getting tired. We were both kind of struggling, and we did work on getting out of the corner and coming to that fence, but we also just did a lot of walk breaks and just tried to really focus on balance, as opposed to, I guess, asking for more collection and extension out of the corner to a fence. But I do feel like he did the exercise that I wanted pretty well, and he was looking pretty okay. It just wasn't exactly what I wanted to work on. Alright, just gonna say that felt horrible when I was writing it, and it didn't look great, but it also didn't feel or look as bad as it felt. My goodness, when I went over that, I was like, we look like a giraffe with like 10 legs going over this, but it actually wasn't that bad. So I still struggle with pulls, so as you saw when we went over that single pull there, it was not easy, but we worked on that a little bit more, and I tried to do things that were just a little bit easier than asking for extension and collection, but I was still asking for him to do a little bit more pace on the long side, which is why I think he started breaking into the pace on the long side a little bit. But yeah, this is just going to be, I think, our next like project, is working on this collection and extension of the canter, getting him stronger on his hind end, and getting him more used to the contact, because that's just something that we haven't done in a long time. And admittedly, when we did work on this, having more contact, we had like nothing behind. So kudos to Stephanie for helping us with getting more impulsion and getting more balance through his top line, because I don't think we would be able to progress to this step without it. I also just think 2 years on the buckle is probably too long for us to be on the buckle. I'm not a trainer, but I just feel like we could have been working on this probably last year, and I think he would have been okay. But we're working on it now, and with this new coach, I think we'll be able to start doing jumpers a little bit sooner than we had in our other barn. But yeah, he really, really tried in this ride and in our lesson, and it makes me really excited for him, just because I feel like I haven't felt him actually focus and try on a lesson like in a very long time. And yeah, it's not pretty. He's having a lot of moments where he breaks the gait and he's pacing and he's off balance, but guys, it's a work in progress, and he's constantly getting better. And I know he's 13, I know he's getting older, but one day we will get to where I am super excited with him and excited to get him over a course without breaking gait. But for now, we're just really working hard at everything, and I think that we will get there, and he will be awesome, because he's already changed so much in such a short amount of time. But yeah, so this was basically the end of our ride. Basically, after I finished this next set over the fences, someone came into the arena, and I'm still kind of uncomfortable filming when there's other people in the arena, so I just decided to cool out, because it had been almost an hour at this point that we had been riding. You can see how sweaty he is. And I felt like he was getting tired, I was getting tired. You can see my lower leg creeping up and not really helping him and supporting him, and he's just having a struggle with it. So once we finished this last little bit, I cooled him out, and that was basically the entirety of our first ride after our first lesson in San Diego. Eventually, I would like to get some footage of us in a lesson so that everyone can see kind of what we work on, but I think until then, it's just going to be watching us do this and what we learn from our lesson, and I'll show you guys what we learn and what we're working on, and I will keep doing vlogs. But I didn't really have a vlog this week, but I did film this ride, so that's why I just felt like I would go ahead and do a voiceover of a riding quote unquote raw and let you guys see where we are and what we learned and what we're working on. So thank you guys so much for watching. I hope that you guys enjoyed seeing this, and I really hope you guys stick around for what I'm assuming is going to be an amazing transformation and glow up for Happy in the next year.